Welcome back to my top 5 series, this time in Elden Ring about the top 5 infusible bleed weapons with suitable Ashes of War for our upcoming Elden Ring DLC Shadow of the Earth Tree. In this series we are focusing more on bringing not only the strongest but also different categories of weapons. And also otherwise, I think it is boring to showcase weapons which play extremely similar. For every build we have similar talisman. We use the 3 main bleed talisman. If you're new game plus, we can use 4 bleed talismans due to the Millicent quest line and prosthesis, which we have here. So keep in mind that the talisman might not change much, so I will not go into more detail in this video. The only difference I do is I sometimes prefer to switch to the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman just because it just reduces the damage taking, which is pretty good. Which I mostly change for the Shard of Alexander because sometimes we don't need the attack power for specific weapons. What I also like to mention at the beginning of this video is that we can use both Golden Vow, however we call it, and Flame Grant Me Strength to boost ourselves up. Like, we can also get super crazy with our boss, but I keep it rather simple. And I also find it kinda annoying using 10 different casts before every boss fight. So let's go with our top 5 infusible bleed weapons. Starting off first with the Grey side, I prefer to play the weapon with the Ash of War wheel and increased in bleed. So we have the option to increase our bleed build up or use the Blood Flame incantation. Both options are totally fine, it's more a preferred play style. I prefer to use the bleed build up most of the time because my arcade is at 60, which just kind of like melts bosses like crazy. And if arcade is significantly lower or your character is not highly skilled, I would recommend using Blood Flame and increase strength or dexterity to level it up, and also shift the weapon type to your preferred choice. In this example here, I have the quality Grey side because I skilled in strength and dexterity. But the weapon is the last on this list because I'm not a big fan of its movement. Also for the Grey side, my preferred choice for this weapon or the Ash of War is the Stormcaller, just because when we put on Blood Flame, we increase our damage to 973. And when we hit one of these enemies here, we have pretty good damage build up, especially with bleed. And yeah, this enemy is pretty easy to, it completely melted down. We have extremely high damage, and it is by far my favorite. The second weapon in this list is the Scavenger Curse Sword. So many are familiar with this weapon, especially in the early days of Elden Ring, and its preferred playstyle was the jump attacks. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the jump attacks because I don't like the playstyle, but it is highly effective. And when we combine it with the jump talisman for sure, like which you can see here, where is it? Here. The claw talisman, which enhances our damage. This is a really crazy playstyle. A lot of people were playing in the beginning, but I'm not really like to get into too much detail because in my opinion, it's just not a lot of fun to play with it. This weapon we can play with both-handed or singular when you're not New Game Plus. What I kind of prefer most of the time is we can, for example, when we play the game normally, I would recommend seppuku for additional bleed build-up and putting the weapon type to bleed. In my opinion, with that we have the fastest bleed build-up, and I find it a bit annoying infusing this weapon all the time, and it just takes additional playtime, and putting on both weapons seppuku is enough to increase our damage insanely. Coming to number 3 is the Bloodhound Fang, which is one of the best weapons in the game and also early game weapons. What makes this weapon so unique and strong is the movement, the bleed build-up, and the possibility to infuse this weapon. But we sadly cannot change the Ash of War or its scaling or the weapon type. Otherwise, the weapon is a bit slower than the other weapons here on the list. The bleed build-up is significantly lower as well due to the less chances of hitting. But it is an early game weapon and have great physical damage, so I put this on this list. I need to say I'm not a big fan of its Ash of War because in my opinion it doesn't hit great and there are better Ashes of War. But combining this weapon with Blood Flame makes it super overpowered, especially for early game builds, and that's the reason it is at place 3 of this list. We also do not need to enter New Game Plus like the Scavenger Curse Sword for its double-headed version. On the second place we have the Godskin Peeler, one of my favorite weapons, especially in terms of bleed. And some other people might prefer to use the Gargoyle Twin Blades. And both are actually pretty similar, but I prefer to use the Godskin Peeler. I don't know, somehow it also seems more satisfying to me, but please choose for yourself. The Ash of War, for example, is already great by itself, but when combined with Seppuku, enemies and bosses do not stand a chance at all. Again, if we use this weapon two-handed or on the left with the Gargoyle Twin Blades, we want to benefit with the jump attacks and the faster bleed damage. But as mentioned before, I'm not a big fan, and in my opinion, using this weapon alone, both-handed, and including Seppuku or Blood Flame to this weapon is completely insane. Because Seppuku on bleed type melts bosses and the chance of affecting bleed buildup with talismans are just ridiculous. But again, here, please use your preferred choice and playstyle with Blood Flame or Seppuku. Hey, thanks for watching the video so far already. I have one short notice I would like to share. Because besides of gaming, we all know health is important. Health is also important to play longer, better and more focused. So when you're interested, besides of gaming, to have a more balance in life, take a look at my other content. I also share valuable insights and guides in my newsletter where I'm talking about all of that. The link is down below, or you find all of my channels under my brand name Jeffalu. Thanks, and back to the video. So for the top weapon, there's nothing else than the Naga Kiba. Super simple early game weapon, especially combining it with double dash, is fast and easy. We can dodge and don't get any hits. And when you use double dash, we can just easily roll away. It is, in my opinion, it's like Rivers of Blood, especially when we include Blood Flame. It is nearly the same weapon, just with a higher bleed build-up and also an option to have a higher bleed build-up and also a better range. We can choose here again putting bleed on this weapon to increase our bleed build-up, or do our Rivers of Blood version with some extra fire damage. And that's it for the video. If there are any recommendations or differences you would do, or maybe there are a way better chance to play one of the weapons differently, please let me know in the comments. And other than that, see you in the next week's video. Bye and have a good rest of the day, and happy playing.